I am standing in front of a full-length mirror, and the woman staring back at me has my eyes. Auburn hair tumbles past her shoulders. A strand of pearls rests against her collarbone. Her lips are painted a shade of frosty pink that I never would have chosen, because not long ago I did not know what frosty pink was. She is wearing a fitted skirt, silk stockings, and heels that make her calves look like they belong on a magazine cover. She is me. My name is Riley, and 6 months ago, I was somebody's husband. This is not the story I expected to tell. It is not the life I planned, or the body I recognized, or the name I answered to. But every stitch of clothing on this frame, every brushstroke of makeup on this face, every whispered word that rewired my sense of self, all of it traces back to one quiet evening with my wife Amanda, when her hands wandered somewhere they had never been, and I discovered a version of pleasure so overwhelming that it cracked the foundation of everything I thought I knew about who I was. I never could have imagined that night would redraw every boundary in my life. Looking back now, it feels like standing on one side of a river and realizing you somehow crossed to the other bank without ever deciding to swim. Everything shifted after that evening, especially me. We were lying together, Amanda and I, wrapped up in each other the way married couples do when the world outside the bedroom door stops mattering. I moved closer, drawn into her warmth, and every nerve in my body lit up like a struck match. My pulse hammered. My thoughts blurred. I was racing toward the edge, barely holding on, when she did something I never saw coming. Her hands drifted to my lower back, gentle at first, kneading the muscles there with slow, deliberate pressure. It felt wonderful, so I kept moving with her, deliberately slowing my rhythm, stretching the moment out like pulled taffy. Then her touch shifted. She parted me carefully, and the tip of her finger found a place no one had ever explored before. The sensation hit me like a lightning strike. Every cell in my body jolted awake. I clenched my jaw, willing myself to hold on, to stay present, to not let the wave crash just yet. But Amanda had other ideas. She pressed deeper, sliding inside, and my body answered before my mind could intervene. The release was seismic, involuntary, total. I shuddered against her again and again until I felt completely hollowed out, remade from the inside. The next night, I did not need convincing. When we came together again, I practically begged her to revisit that uncharted territory. She had opened a door I never knew existed, and now I wanted to walk through it every single time. There are so many nerve endings there, she explained, tracing lazy circles on my shoulder. It works for me too. Next time I take the lead, I want you to do the same thing for me. You have my word, I said, and I meant it with everything I had. Amanda had a gift for reinvention. She never let our intimate life settle into routine. After several encounters where her fingers guided me to that extraordinary new sensation, she arrived one evening with a small purple device she had ordered online. She smoothed lubricant over its surface and held it up with a pragmatic smile. I love doing this for you, she said, but honestly, it makes me feel a little awkward using just my hand. This gives you the same feeling, and I get to keep things tidy. I studied the little object. All right, I told her. Let us see what it can do. She teased me with it at first, circling, hinting, building anticipation until my breath came in shallow bursts. Then she eased it inside, slowly, patiently, reading my reactions like a musician tuning an instrument. When she found the right depth, the right angle, the stimulation eclipsed anything her finger had managed. I was lost in it almost instantly. But Amanda was not finished experimenting. She never was. Over the weeks that followed, she introduced a rotating collection of personal devices, each one slightly larger, slightly different in shape. Every step up in size unlocked a new register of intensity that left me speechless. The only one that gave me pause was a device sculpted to mimic a man's form, with almost unsettling realism, every contour and ridge faithfully reproduced. I hesitated. Something about it felt like crossing a line I could not name. But Amanda coaxed me gently, and when I finally agreed, The sensation silenced every objection my mind tried to raise. The shape, the texture, everything about it seemed engineered to undo me. I did not want to admit how much I enjoyed it, but I did, deeply. Then, one afternoon, during the slow, exploratory warmth that preceded our closeness, Amanda shifted her attention. Her palm glided across my chest, and before I could ask what she was doing, her lips closed around my left nipple. A jolt of pure electricity shot through me, so sudden and sharp that I gasped. I had no idea that part of my body could respond like that, could light up like a signal flare demanding attention. "Keep doing that," I breathed. "Please, do not stop." She looked up, eyes bright with mischief and tenderness. But there was a logistical problem. If her mouth stayed at my chest, her hands could not reach behind me, and I craved both sensations at once. Amanda, ever the problem solver, disappeared into the closet and returned wearing a harness fitted with one of her devices. She guided me to the edge of the bed, positioned herself behind me, and eased inside with practiced care. The fullness was exquisite. Then her arms circled my torso, her fingertips found both nipples, and she began to move. The combination was almost more than I could bear. Each forward motion sent waves rippling through me, while her fingers played counterpoint against my chest. My breathing fractured, my vision blurred at the edges. There was only one complication, and it announced itself immediately. My body responded with an arousal so fierce and so visible that there was absolutely no hiding it. But now the geometry had changed. I was not inside her, and both her hands were occupied behind me. I had no choice but to attend to myself, and when the moment finally broke, the intensity nearly knocked me sideways. I doubled over, gasping, my knuckles white against the sheets. When the trembling subsided, I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. "I wish you could do that to my chest while we are together the regular way," I said, still catching my breath. She propped herself on one elbow and gave me a sympathetic look. "I know, but then I cannot give your cute little backside any attention." The disappointment sat in my stomach like a stone. There had to be a way to have both sensations at once. Amanda saw the frustration on my face and squeezed my hand. "Give me some time," she said. "I will figure something out." I believed her. Amanda always figured something out. A few weeks passed before she came home one evening with a small parcel and a triumphant grin. She pulled out two compact devices, each no bigger than a coin, powered by tiny batteries. They attached directly to the skin with a medical-grade adhesive and vibrated at adjustable speeds. "Problem solved," she announced, holding them up like tiny trophies. "Hands-free stimulation for your chest. Now we can have everything at once." I could not get upstairs fast enough. We undressed, followed the instructions carefully, and switched the little devices on. The sensation bloomed across my chest immediately, warm and buzzing and perfectly targeted. Combined with Amanda behind me and the fullness of her device, I felt like every pleasure center in my body was firing simultaneously. But there was a flaw. As I moved, as the heat built and perspiration began to slick my skin, the adhesive started to fail. First, the right one shifted. Then, the left one popped clean off and tumbled onto the mattress. I needed both hands to brace myself, and Amanda's hands were fully committed elsewhere. I fumbled, tried to press the device back into place, lost my rhythm, and growled in frustration. We were tantalizingly close to perfection, and a strip of failing adhesive was the only thing standing in the way. "Hold on," Amanda said. "I have an idea." She reached over to the pile of clothing she had shed earlier, rummaged for a moment, and came back with something I did not expect. She reattached both devices to my chest, then told me to extend my arms. I obeyed without thinking, and she began threading my arms through the straps of her bra. "What are you doing?" My voice cracked with alarm. "Relax. This will hold them in place so they stop popping off. Think of it as engineering, not fashion." "Oh," I said, the tension draining out of my shoulders. She was right. It was purely functional. I admired her resourcefulness and let her fasten the clasp behind me. I resumed moving, and for a blissful few minutes, everything worked beautifully. Then the left device slipped again, rattling loose inside the cup. "This is not working," I said, deflated. The left one came off again. She studied the problem for half a second. "My cup size is too large for your frame. We need to fill the extra space so the device stays pressed tight against you." Amanda grabbed her pantyhose, wadded them into a ball, and tucked them into the left cup, snugging the vibrator firmly against my skin. Then she rolled up her blouse and stuffed it into the right cup. Both devices now sat flush against my chest, with nowhere to slide. I started moving again, and this time nothing shifted, nothing fell. Every sensation arrived exactly where it was supposed to, layered and relentless. When I finally let go, the release roared through me like a freight train, so powerful that my vision whited out at the edges, and I collapsed forward, trembling, barely able to form words. We had cracked the code at last. The next afternoon, Amanda walked through the front door carrying a shopping bag. She reached inside and produced 2 silicone breast forms, anatomically sculpted with convincing weight and texture, complete with realistic details down to the small raised points at their centers. I stared at them. "What are those for?" She set them on the kitchen counter as casually as if she were unpacking groceries. "Well, we ruined my good blouse stuffing it into the bra last night." Wrinkled beyond saving. And it occurred to me that bras are literally designed to hold something breast-shaped. So if we need to fill the cups to keep your little vibrators locked against your little nipples, something molded like the real thing will do a far better job than a balled-up shirt. I turned one of the forms over in my hand. It was surprisingly heavy, warm to the touch, and disturbingly lifelike. The logic, though, was hard to argue with. "That makes sense, I guess," I said, setting it down carefully. We headed upstairs to test the new arrangement. I placed the vibrating devices on my chest, slipped on the bra Amanda had designated as mine, and nestled the silicone forms into the cups. The fit was immediate and secure. The devices pressed against me with gentle, unyielding pressure, and the weight on my chest felt oddly grounding, like a hand resting there to steady me. Amanda prepared her device, and we began. Every element clicked into place from the very first motion. The vibrations hummed steadily against my chest, never shifting, never faltering. The fullness behind me built in slow, rolling waves. Amanda found her rhythm, and I found mine, and the two locked together like gears in a watch. When the peak finally arrived, it crashed over me so hard that I lost all sense of time and place. My body arching, every muscle pulling taut, the sound that escaped my throat somewhere between a cry and a laugh. The sheer volume of sensation was almost too much to process. My whole body hummed in unison, and I lay there afterward marveling at how far we had traveled from where we started. I loved Amanda for this, not just for the physical inventiveness, but for the care behind it, the hours of thought and planning and quiet problem-solving, all aimed at one simple goal: making me feel extraordinary. But that week, Amanda wanted to adjust the tempo. "I want to start slower this time," she said, her voice low and deliberate. "Build everything up before we get to the peak." I nodded. After everything she had given me, I would have agreed to almost anything. I owed her that trust, and besides, every new idea she introduced seemed to unlock something I did not know I was missing. I put on the bra with the forms and switched on the vibrating devices. Amanda stepped into the harness and prepared the device with careful, measured strokes of lubricant. She guided me to the edge of the bed, and I leaned forward, gripping the comforter. She began slowly, tracing feather-light circles, teasing without entering, letting the anticipation coil tighter and tighter inside me, like a spring wound past its limit. When she finally eased inside, the relief and the fullness merged into a single searing note. The vibrations at my chest added a counter-rhythm, and I surrendered to the combination completely. She increased her pace, each motion more forceful than the last, until I was gripping the mattress just to stay anchored. Then she pulled back and shifted the scene entirely. "Now I want you in me," she said, from behind. "That angle gives me the most." She leaned over the bed where I had just been. I moved behind her and entered, settling into a rhythm that I knew she loved. But something snagged my attention. She was still wearing the harness, and protruding from the front of it was the device, sculpted in that unmistakable masculine shape. The image reflected in the mirror across the room caught me off guard. Her, bent forward with that form jutting out. Me, behind her, with filled cups pressing against my chest, the soft weight swaying slightly with every motion. I finished powerfully, the way I always did with her, the way my body now expected to finish after weeks of layered sensation. But Amanda was not done. She wanted to reverse positions again, and I agreed, leaning back over the bed while she entered me from behind. She found her rhythm. The devices hummed against my chest. The fullness returned, but this time, instead of pleasure, a strange dissonance crept in, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. I watched our reflection again. The bra. The realistic weight filling the cups. Amanda behind me, the harness strapped on, driving forward with confident authority. And me, receiving, yielding, the silhouette in the mirror, unmistakably feminine. Something inside me recoiled. "I do not like this," I said. She slowed but did not stop. "Why?" "You are making me feel like a woman." The words landed like a glass hitting a tile floor. Amanda withdrew immediately. She reached for the remote and killed the vibrations. The sudden silence in the room felt enormous. She sat down beside me on the edge of the bed, breathing carefully, studying my face. "I do not understand," she said. I sat up and pulled the bra straps off my shoulders, suddenly desperate to shed every trace of the arrangement. "Look at me," I said. "I am wearing a bra. I have what looks like breasts. And you are standing there with that thing on, and you are thrusting into me like you are the man in this scenario. That makes me the woman. And I do not want to feel that way." Amanda stared at me for a long, airless moment. Her jaw tightened. When she spoke, her voice was flat and controlled. "If you do not like any of this, we can go back to how things were before." She stood, crossed the room in 3 swift strides, and disappeared into the bathroom. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frame. "Amanda," I called. "Please, come back." Silence answered me. I sat on the bed, surrounded by the props of our experimentation, the bra still half hanging off one shoulder, the breast forms resting on the rumpled sheets like strange artifacts from a life that suddenly felt unfamiliar. And I understood with sickening clarity that I had just wounded the person who had poured more creativity and generosity into my happiness than anyone I had ever known. She held out for one night. Just one. The following evening, she relented, and we came together again. But everything had changed. She lay flat on her back, arms at her sides, and simply waited. No vibrating devices, no harness, no teasing buildup, no exploration of any kind. Just the most basic version of us, stripped of every embellishment she had so carefully constructed. It was fine. Technically, physically, it functioned. But after the heights we had reached, it felt like listening to a symphony through a wall. Muffled. Distant. I finished quickly, almost rushing to end what felt more like an obligation than a connection. The pattern repeated for the rest of the week. A day or two of distance, then the same flat, mechanical encounter. Her lying still. Me going through the motions. Both of us pretending this was acceptable. Finally, I could not stand it any longer. I had to surrender my pride and face what I had done. I took her out to dinner at the Italian place she loved, the one with the candles dripping wax onto checkered tablecloths. I brought her yellow tulips because she once told me roses were predictable. I set a box of dark chocolates beside her wineglass and watched her fight a smile. Then I talked. Really talked. I told her I was sorry. Not the reflexive, throwaway sorry that men toss out to end arguments, but the kind that sits in your chest and aches. I told her that she had given me more of herself in the last few months than I had any right to expect, that every idea she brought to our bed was an act of love wrapped in ingenuity, and that I had responded to all of it by throwing it back in her face. A small, guilty voice in the back of my mind whispered that I had not exactly been a model husband in other ways either, but I pushed that thought down where it could not reach the surface. She listened without interrupting, turning the stem of her wineglass slowly between her fingers. "Tell me something," she said when I finished. "Did it feel good? What we were doing before you panicked?" "Yes," I admitted. "It felt incredible. Then how can something be wrong if it makes you feel that alive? What exactly was the problem with what we were doing?" I pressed my palms flat on the table and searched for honest words. "You have to understand. For a man, the idea of being cast in a feminine role feels like losing something fundamental. It feels like the worst thing imaginable." Amanda set her glass down and leaned forward, her eyes sharp and curious. "How?" she said. "Explain that to me, because I truly do not see it. Why can you not just move past this? Why are you so trapped inside all this macho nonsense? Do you honestly believe that what we did turned you into a woman?" "No," I admitted. The word tasted like chalk, but it made me feel like one. I felt exposed, vulnerable. Something inside me buckled and I panicked. I was not strong enough to sit with that feeling. Amanda tilted her head, and I could see her turning my confession over, examining it from every angle. "So you are telling me you are not strong enough to accept something that brings you extraordinary pleasure? It is not that simple. You do not understand." "No," she said, and her voice carried a new edge now, something between exasperation and pity. "You are the one who does not understand. You are letting some ridiculous masculine ideal cloud your thinking." She paused, took a slow sip of wine, and set the glass down with a definitive click. "Fine, I will give up. We will keep doing what we have been doing this past week, the bare minimum. Take it or leave it." The words hit me like ice water. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "No. Please, Amanda. Give me one more chance. I loved what we were doing. I loved what we had. I will do whatever it takes." She studied me for what felt like a full minute, her expression unreadable. I could almost see the calculations behind her eyes, weighing my sincerity against the sting of how I had treated her. "If we go back to that," she said slowly, "you will need to bury your machismo. Completely. You will have to prove to me that those old ideas will never sabotage us again." My heart was hammering. "How? Just tell me how, and I will do it." She let the silence stretch one beat longer than felt comfortable. "You will spend all of Saturday as a woman." The restaurant noise seemed to drain away. I was not certain I had heard her correctly. The clink of silverware, the murmur of other diners, all of it faded to static. "What do you mean?" My voice barely qualified as a whisper. Amanda leaned forward, her gaze steady and unyielding. "I will dress you. I will make you pretty. You will have long hair, a skirt, smooth legs. You will wear feminine undergarments from the skin out. I will do your makeup. I will teach you to walk in heels, to sit properly, to move the way a woman moves. The full experience. Everything." I swallowed hard. "And the point of all this would be what, exactly?" She folded her hands on the table with the patience of someone explaining gravity to a child. "If you spend an entire day living as a girl, doing what girls do, feeling what girls feel, then you will prove to me that you can handle it. And after that, what happens between us in bed will seem like nothing. Your silly panic will evaporate, and we can go back to the incredible connection we had." She held my gaze. "So, what do you say?" I understood the stakes with absolute clarity. This was the crossroads, and there were only two roads leading out. If I said no, she would lock that adventurous, generous, endlessly creative side of herself away forever. Our intimate life would flatline into polite routine until we both stopped caring. But if I said yes, I would have to swallow every ounce of pride I possessed. I would have to let her put me in a skirt, paint my face, and turn me into something that contradicted every image I had ever held of myself. And yet, buried under the fear, a quiet voice reminded me that she might actually be right. If I could survive an entire day in that world, then what happened between us afterward would feel like nothing by comparison. "I will do it," I said. Amanda's whole face softened. "I am glad," she said, and leaned across the table to press a gentle kiss against my cheek. "Tomorrow is Saturday. When you wake up, we begin your transformation. I expect you to be ready. Legs shaved, chest shaved, underarms too. If I see a single trace of body hair, I will know you lost your nerve. If you are too afraid to let me dress you as a girl, that is your choice and your loss. But if you are willing, then the real adventure starts." "I will be ready," I told her, forcing steel into my voice. "I am not afraid." The twinkle in her eyes suggested she knew better. Saturday morning arrived the way all dreaded mornings do, far too quickly and bathed in merciless sunlight. I had set my alarm an hour early and locked myself in the bathroom with a fresh razor, shaving cream, and a growing knot of anxiety lodged beneath my ribs. I shaved everything Amanda had specified: legs, chest, underarms, wincing at the unfamiliar drag of the blade across skin that had never been bare. When I finished, I stood in front of the mirror and stared at a body that looked strangely unfinished, like a rough draft of someone I did not recognize. Within minutes, the itching began, a maddening, all-over prickling that made me want to claw at my own skin. Amanda appeared with an armful of bottles and jars, and without a word, she began smoothing lotions and creams across every freshly shaved surface. The creams smelled of jasmine and white peony, and by the time she finished, so did I. I inhaled and caught my own scent, delicate, floral, entirely foreign. She handed me a pair of satin undergarments, pale lavender with a narrow lace trim. I stepped into them and pulled them up, feeling the unfamiliar fabric glide against my newly smooth skin. Then came a bra, different from the one I had been using during our intimate experiments. "Why this one?" I asked, turning it over in my hands. "Why not the other?" "You kept complaining that the straps slipped off your shoulders," she said matter-of-factly, fastening the clasp behind me with practiced ease. "This one has a racer back. It holds the straps in place, so you are not constantly reaching up to adjust them." "Oh," I said. The casual expertise in her voice made me feel like a tourist in a country where everyone else spoke the language fluently. She slid the silicone breast forms into the cups, adjusting them until they sat naturally. I looked down at myself, standing in a sunlit bedroom, wearing nothing but lavender lingerie and a fitted bra with convincing curves, and the dissonance between what I saw and who I believed myself to be yawned open like a canyon. Before I could dwell on it, Amanda produced the next piece. A girdle, constructed from stiff, heavyweight fabric with boning along the sides and a panel across the front. She wrapped it around my midsection and began fastening the hooks, each one pulling tighter than the last, compressing my waist and redistributing everything above and below. When she finished, I looked in the mirror again. My stomach had flattened. My hips flared with a subtle curve that had not existed 5 minutes ago. The shape staring back at me was undeniably feminine, and I felt my pulse quicken with something I could not quite name. Not fear exactly, not excitement. Something in between, like standing on the edge of a high dive and realizing you have already left the board. The rigid material did something else too, something I had not anticipated. It compressed and smoothed the front of my undergarments until nothing disrupted the flat line of fabric. Between that seamless front and the convincing fullness filling out my bra, the reflection in the mirror was undergoing a transformation that felt both gradual and shockingly fast. My head and arms still belonged to me, but below the neck, smooth legs, sculpted curves, a flat silhouette where there should not have been one, and a bustline that looked entirely natural. This was me, and yet it was not me at all. But Amanda was nowhere near finished. She knelt at my feet and unfolded a pair of dark silk stockings, the kind with 4 inches of delicate lace decorating the tops. She showed me how to gather each one, roll it carefully over my toes, and draw it up slowly so the fabric would not snag or twist. The silk whispered against my freshly shaved skin, cool and impossibly smooth, clinging to every contour. Then came a garter belt, an intricate little contraption of satin and metal clips that sat low on my hips. She walked me through attaching each clip to the lace tops of the stockings, pulling the straps taut so nothing would slip during the day. Next, she held up a skirt and waited for me to step into it. It was brown, tiered with 3 layers of ruffles at the hem, each one embroidered with tiny sequins that caught the morning light and scattered it in bright flecks across the walls. The femininity of it was almost aggressive. It ended above my knees, leaving my stocking-covered legs exposed from mid-thigh down, and I felt a rush of vulnerability so intense it bordered on vertigo. She handed me a sleeveless brown print top and watched me button it with clumsy fingers. The fabric pulled snug across my torso, and the breast forms pressed outward against the material, their shape unmistakable and prominently visible. There would be no pretending they were not there, no crossing my arms casually to hide them. They announced themselves with every breath I took. I assumed we were done. I was wrong. Amanda guided me to her vanity, sat me down on the cushioned stool, and switched on the ring of lights surrounding the mirror. The brightness was merciless. Each pore, each faint shadow, each trace of masculinity still clinging to my face was illuminated without mercy. She started with foundation, blending it across my forehead, cheeks, chin, and jaw with a damp sponge until my skin looked poreless and luminous. Whatever roughness the morning shave had left behind vanished under her hands. Then she moved to my eyes, layer after layer of shadow in smoky browns and soft golds, a thin, precise line along each lid, and finally mascara, which she applied with tiny upward strokes that made my lashes look impossibly long and dark. When I glanced at the mirror, I barely recognized the face looking back. My eyes had become large and soft and expressive, framed in shadow and light like something from a painting. Lipstick came next. She traced a frosty pink across my mouth, filling in each curve with careful strokes, then pressed a tissue between my lips to blot. The color was startling. My mouth looked fuller, softer, shaped in a way I had never noticed before. She dusted warm color across my cheekbones, then took a thin pencil and defined my eyebrows with short, feathery strokes. Suddenly, my brows had architecture, lifting and framing my eyes until they looked glamorous and inviting in a way that made my stomach flip. I could not believe the face in the mirror. I kept blinking, expecting it to change, expecting the illusion to crack. It did not. "Where did you get that?" I asked as she produced a wig of long auburn hair from a box I had never seen before. "Oh, just something I picked up," she said lightly, as though it were a carton of milk. She fitted it onto my head, adjusted the cap, and began arranging the waves with her fingers. The hair tumbled past my shoulders, thick and gleaming, brushing against my bare arms with a ticklish softness that made me shiver. Several strands fell forward across my face, partially veiling my features, and whatever remained of the man I had been that morning retreated further behind the curtain of auburn waves. I sat motionless as she clipped delicate earrings onto my lobes. Cool metal kissed my skin. She slid rings onto my fingers, slim bands, and one with a small glinting stone, and they caught the vanity lights each time my hand trembled. Then she draped a double-strand pearl necklace around my neck, fastening the clasp at my nape where the wig met bare skin. "Now hold your hand out like this," she said, extending her own fingers flat and steady. "Why? I am doing your nails!" I felt something drain out of me then. Not energy exactly, but resistance. Whatever internal scaffolding had been holding my objections upright simply collapsed. I offered my hand without protest, and she began painting each nail a bright frosty pink that matched my lips. I watched the tiny brush move in smooth, confident strokes and did not say a single word. When she finished my hands, she told me to swing my feet to the side. I obeyed automatically, and she slid a pair of high-heeled shoes onto my feet, one at a time, tightening the thin ankle straps until they were secure. The heels were tall and tapered to narrow points. I stared down at them, at the dark stockings disappearing into the ruffled hem of my skirt, at the elegant line my legs now made from hip to pointed toe. Those were not my legs. Those were a woman's legs, graceful and shapely, and completely foreign to the body I had inhabited for my entire life. I stood. Or rather, I tried to stand. The heels shifted my balance forward, forcing my spine into a subtle arch, my hips into a slight tilt. I tottered for a moment, then found my footing, and caught my full reflection in the long mirror across the bedroom. A woman looked back at me, auburn hair cascading over bare shoulders, doe eyes rimmed in smoky shadow, pink lips slightly parted in shock, pearl necklace resting against a smooth collarbone, a fitted top that left no doubt about the curves beneath, a flirty ruffled skirt catching the light with every sequin, dark stockings, elegant heels, pink painted nails. From the crown of my head to the tips of my pointed toes, there was not a single visible trace of the man who had woken up in this room that morning. I could not move. I could not speak. I felt as though all the scaffolding of my identity had been gently dismantled and rearranged into a shape I did not recognize, but could not deny. I stood there, passive, adrift, waiting for Amanda to tell me what came next, because I no longer trusted myself to decide. She stepped close, looked me up and down with an expression that held equal parts pride and tenderness, and spoke quietly. "Now you are no longer a man," she said. "Now you are no longer my husband. You are a girl now, a woman. You have crossed over and you belong to our side now. Do you understand me? You are not a man anymore, sweetheart. You are a woman. A woman," I whispered. The word felt enormous in my mouth, too large to swallow, too real to spit back out. Yes, dear. A woman. And a woman cannot go around answering to a man's name. You need something proper, something that fits who you are right now. She paused, tilting her head, as though selecting a paint color for a room she had already redecorated in her mind. "I think your name shall be Riley." "Riley?" The syllables floated between us, delicate and unfamiliar. "Yes. You are Riley now. Say it for me. Tell me your name and tell me what you have become." My throat tightened. I caught my reflection in the vanity mirror one more time. The auburn hair, the painted lips, the pearls, the curves, and something inside me released its grip, not willingly, but from sheer exhaustion. "I am Riley," I stammered. "I have become a woman." "Very good," Amanda said, and her smile carried the warmth of someone welcoming a guest who had finally agreed to step through the door. "You are a woman now. You are no longer my husband. You are my girlfriend, Riley." I looked down at my hands, the pink polished nails gleaming under the bedroom lights, and noticed something that made my breath catch. My gold wedding band was gone. In its place sat a slender diamond ring in a feminine setting, the kind of ring a woman wears when someone has claimed her heart. An engagement ring. On my finger. On me. So there I stood. Riley, Amanda's girlfriend, dressed from head to toe in clothing I could not have imagined wearing 24 hours earlier. I caught a faint trace of jasmine rising from my skin and wondered, with a kind of stunned detachment, what exactly I had agreed to. The next few hours were a masterclass in humility. Amanda dismantled every physical habit I had spent a lifetime building and rebuilt them from scratch. She corrected the way I stood, shoulders back, weight shifted to one hip. She taught me how to sit, knees together, ankles crossed, skirt smoothed beneath me, before I lowered myself into the chair. Walking in the heels was its own private ordeal. She had me cross the bedroom again and again, one foot placed directly in front of the other, hips swaying gently, arms relaxed at my sides, instead of swinging like a lumberjack. She handed me a small brown leather purse and showed me how to carry it, tucked under my arm or dangling from my wrist, never gripped like a football. She coached my voice upward, softening the register, rounding the vowels, until the sound coming out of my painted mouth bore only a passing resemblance to the voice I used at work. She had me do everything as a woman would do it. Pick up a glass, answer a question, laugh, gesture, tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. Every motion relearned, every reflex overwritten. "Very good, Riley," she said at last, stepping back to appraise me the way a sculptor examines a finished piece. "Now you are ready. Ready for what?" "Lunch. Come with me. And do not forget your purse. A woman never goes anywhere without her purse." I followed her downstairs, turning automatically toward the kitchen. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To lunch. I thought we were eating here." "We are not eating in, darling. We are going out. Now come along." My stomach dropped through the floor. I climbed into the passenger side of the car on trembling legs, the heels clicking against the pavement, the skirt riding up slightly as I sat, and then remembering to smooth it down the way she had taught me. The seatbelt pressed against the breast forms, and I caught my reflection in the side mirror. Riley stared back at me, wide-eyed and terrified. Amanda drove for a few minutes, calm and cheerful, humming along with the radio as though this were the most ordinary Saturday in the world. She pulled into a parking spot near a little outdoor cafe. We were seated at a table beneath a striped umbrella, and the waiter brought us water with lemon. I desperately wanted something stronger. I hid behind the oversized menu, my pink fingernails curling around its edges, praying that no one I knew would walk by. Then things got worse. Amanda's face lit up, and she rose from her chair with open arms. I turned to see who she was greeting, and my blood went cold. Her sister Nicole was walking toward us, sunglasses pushed up on her head, a bright smile already aimed directly at me. "Hello, Riley," Nicole said, settling into the chair beside me as though we were old friends. "My big sister has told me everything about you." "Hi, Nicole," I managed, my practiced feminine voice wavering at the edges. Nicole leaned forward and studied me with genuine appreciation. "When she told me you were going to become a woman, I could not believe it. But I have to say, you make a wonderful female. I am so glad you have decided to join us. Once you have been through the full transition, and you have really become one of us, I think you are going to love it." She reached over and squeezed my hand, her expression warm and encouraging, as though I were recovering from surgery and she was visiting with flowers. Then she turned to Amanda with a conspiratorial grin. "So, sis, have you started her on the new supplements yet, like I suggested?" Amanda leaned close and whispered something into Nicole's ear. Nicole's eyes widened, and then both of them dissolved into giggles, the kind of synchronized laughter that only sisters share, the kind that made it perfectly clear I was the subject and not the audience. A chill crawled up my spine. Nicole was not a surprise guest. She was part of this. She had been part of this, possibly from the very beginning, and I had not seen it. And the way she spoke, the full transition, really becoming one of us, none of it sounded like she was describing a single Saturday afternoon. She talked about it as though this were a journey with no return ticket. I forced a smile. Two could play this game. The more I resisted, the more entertainment I provided. The smarter move was to lean in, play the role so convincingly that Amanda would be satisfied, and this beautiful, bewildering torture would reach its natural end. "I cannot wait to start the supplements," I said brightly, hoping to demonstrate just how game I was, how unshakable Riley could be. Amanda exchanged a quick look with Nicole. Then she turned back to me, and the corners of her mouth twitched. "But Riley," she said softly, "you already have." "What?" "Oh yes," she said, and both sisters began to giggle again. Every day for the past 3 months, Nicole continued, her voice light and casual, as though she were describing a change in laundry detergent. Remember when Amanda switched vitamin brands? She simply swapped them out for a special hormonal blend. You have been taking feminizing supplements for months now, Riley. Every single morning, with your orange juice, like clockwork. The ground tilted beneath me. My carefully constructed plan to play along, to out-cooperate them and earn my freedom, crumbled like wet paper. This was not a game anymore. Something had been happening inside my body without my knowledge, without my consent, and the realization hit me like a door slamming shut in a dark hallway. "Let us see how far along you are," Nicole said, tilting her head with clinical curiosity. "Tell me, Riley, do you think our waiter is attractive?" I had not even looked at him. "I did not look," I said flatly. Nicole turned to Amanda and shook her head with mock disappointment. "Not quite there yet. But give it time. Are you telling me these supplements are going to change how I feel about men?" My voice cracked with alarm, and I did not bother to keep it in the practiced feminine register. Nicole folded her napkin with infuriating calm. "In time, yes. Soon you will think and feel the way we do. You will be one of us in every sense." I had no idea whether any of that was true, or whether she was simply trying to frighten me into submission, but the confidence in her voice left no room for me to challenge her. She ticked the points off on her fingers, as though reading from a checklist. "You will start to feel that the breast forms are not enough. The temporary ones will frustrate you. You will crave permanence. My guess is you will want implants within a few months. And after that, you will feel a deep, undeniable need to have your entire body reflect who you have truly become." I stared at her, my mouth open, my painted lips trembling. "I'm afraid you are past the point of no return," she added gently, almost kindly, the way a doctor delivers news that cannot be softened. "There is no stopping it now. You are too far down this road to ever turn back." Part of me doubted that 3 months of supplements could truly be irreversible, but sitting there in heels and pearls, I was in no position to argue science. "That is not true," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I could hear how hollow they sounded. Amanda reached across the table and rested her hand on mine, her thumb tracing slow circles over my knuckles. "Darling," she said, 1 or 2 months ago, if I had suggested you dress up as a woman, would you have agreed?" "No," I said immediately. "Or even a few weeks ago. Would you not have had the resolve to refuse going out in public like this? But you did not refuse. You climbed right into the car. You sat down at this table. You are wearing heels and pearls and a skirt, sitting in a cafe in the middle of the city, and you did not put up a single real fight." She let that settle. "You are so open now, Riley. You are ready. That is why I brought Nicole in. She is going to guide you through the rest of your transition. Permanently." "No," I whispered. "Oh, yes," said Nicole, leaning forward with the steady confidence of someone who has planned for every objection. "There is no point in resisting, sweetheart. You are going to become a woman." Amanda straightened in her chair, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a finality that made the air feel heavier. "When I told you that you are not a man anymore, and that you are not my husband, I meant every word. We will never be intimate again the way we used to be. To me, you are already a woman, and I do not share my bed with a woman in the same way. But Amanda has been teaching you how to experience closeness as a woman," Nicole added, her tone shifting to something almost tender. "While you are still in the early stages, you might find someone who appreciates you for exactly who you are becoming. You already enjoy receiving. You already know how that feels. And soon, after everything is complete, you will be able to look at your partner as he lies beside you and holds you, and it will feel like the most natural thing in the world." "No," I said, and this time the word tore out of me, raw and desperate. My whole life had slipped out of my grasp like sand through open fingers. I was sitting in a public cafe, dressed as a woman named Riley, and two people I trusted were calmly explaining that my future had already been decided. After everything is sorted out, Nicole continued, undeterred, you can find a wonderful man and start fresh. You will love being a bride, Riley. I will help you choose your dress. We will plan everything together. My vision blurred. I blinked rapidly and stared down at the salad they had ordered for me. A small composed plate of greens and shaved vegetables, the kind of lunch I would never have chosen for myself. I picked at it with trembling fingers, moving leaves around without tasting anything. Look at that, Nicole murmured to Amanda. She eats like a girl already. Once she starts on a proper balanced diet and slims down a bit, her figure is going to be stunning. I could not respond. The compliment landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of dread through everything I thought I understood about my life. After lunch, we walked down the street to a clothing boutique in the Pearl District. The storefronts were bright and inviting, filled with mannequins wearing things I would have walked past 1,000 times without a second glance. Now Amanda was steering me through the door as though this were the most natural Saturday errand imaginable. Now that you are going to live the rest of your life as a girl, you will need your own wardrobe, Amanda said, running her fingers along a rack of blouses. Nicole appeared beside me, holding up a fitted dress against my frame and squinting appraisingly. But we will hold off on buying too many bras for now. Not until you have your implants. Then you can be properly fitted. Something inside me shuddered so violently, I was surprised it did not show on the surface. Nicole spoke about implants the way someone might discuss a dental appointment, inevitable, routine, already scheduled in her mind. And Amanda stood right beside her, nodding along, fully aligned with every word. My own wife. The woman I had loved, had trusted, had followed into every experimental corner of our intimate life, was now calmly endorsing a future in which I would cease to exist as the person I had always been. I did not understand. I could not make the pieces fit. How could she want this? How could the woman who had kissed me at our wedding, who had whispered my real name in the dark, now look at me in a ruffled skirt and see someone she wanted to erase entirely? Then Nicole stepped into a dressing room to try on a pair of pants, and for the first time all day, I was alone with Amanda. I seized the moment. I grabbed Amanda's arm and pulled her behind a tall rack of winter coats, glancing over my shoulder to make sure the dressing room door was still closed. You have to help me, I whispered, my voice shaking. This was only supposed to be for one day. I do not want to be turned into a woman permanently. I do not want feminizing supplements. I do not want implants. Please, Amanda, do not let her do this to me. You have to stop this. Amanda studied my face with an expression I could not quite read. Surprise, maybe. Or something calculated wearing the mask of surprise. Okay, she said quietly. I will get her to back off, but only if you agree to my terms. Yes, I said instantly. Of course. Anything you want. Good. She smiled, and the warmth in it felt both reassuring and unsettling at the same time. When we get home, I will tell you the new rules, but I will protect you from Nicole. You can keep things as they are, if that matters so much to you. It does, I said, and the relief that flooded through me was so intense, my knees nearly buckled. After that, the rest of the shopping trip felt almost bearable. We browsed through racks of dresses and blouses and skirts, and I let Amanda hold things up against me without protest. None of it mattered now. This was just theater, a single strange Saturday that would end when we walked through our front door. Amanda would probably return everything by Monday. We said goodbye to Nicole outside the boutique. She hugged me and told me she was proud of me, and I smiled and thanked her, and pretended that the whole afternoon had not nearly destroyed me from the inside out. At home, we carried the shopping bags upstairs and put everything away in the closet. Amanda had cleared space on her side, an entire section of hangers and 2 empty drawers, as though she had been planning this for weeks. I chose not to think about that. Then something shifted in the air between us. Amanda moved closer, her hand finding the small of my back, her lips brushing my neck just below the wig's auburn waves. The tenderness disarmed me completely. After the terror of the afternoon, her warmth felt like shelter, and I let myself be drawn in. Soon I was lying on my back, still fully dressed as Riley, and she was above me, kissing me slowly, deeply, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. I wanted her desperately, but she had other plans. She reached for the harness, prepared the device, and guided me onto my stomach. The vibrating devices on my chest hummed to life, pressed firmly against me by the bra and the silicone forms. When she entered me from behind, the fullness and the buzzing and her breath against the back of my neck combined into something that obliterated rational thought. Afterward, she was not finished. She wanted me to take her from behind, but she guided me to her other entrance. "It is much tighter there," she murmured. "Trust me. You will love how it feels." I did, and she was right. When I finished, the intensity buckled my arms, and I collapsed against her, gasping. But Amanda wanted another round. She eased me onto my stomach again and slid the device back inside me, slowly, deliberately, and as she began to move, she started to talk. "You promised me," she said, her voice calm and measured against the rhythm of her movements. "You promised that if I saved you from Nicole, you would live by my new rules." "Yes," I breathed. "You saved me. I will do anything you ask." "Good." She thrust deeper, and I gasped. "Here is the price. First, when we are at home, you are Riley. Always. You will dress as a woman and carry yourself as a woman every moment you are inside this house. As long as you are a good girl, I will stop the feminizing supplements. But if you step out of line, even once, you go back on them permanently. Do you understand?" "Yes," I whispered. "Second, this is the only way we will be intimate from now on. You are no longer allowed inside me the traditional way. That door is closed." "Why?" I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer. "Jessica," she said. I went rigid, every muscle in my body locked. The name landed like a grenade in a quiet room. Jessica. How did Amanda know? We had been so careful, so meticulous about keeping everything hidden. Not a single text message left undeleted. Not a single unexplained absence. And yet Amanda knew. She had known, perhaps for a long time, and she had been quietly building this elaborate architecture around me, while I believed I was the one with secrets. I had no leverage left, no ground to stand on, no righteous indignation to summon. She had me, completely and irrevocably. "But a woman has certain needs," Amanda continued, her pace never faltering. "Needs that you are no longer equipped to fulfill. So I am going to start seeing other men. And you are not only going to allow it, you are going to encourage it. You are going to smile and tell me to have a wonderful time when I walk out the door. Do you understand?" "Yes," I whispered, and the word tasted like ash. My old life was disintegrating around me in real time. I would never have her the way I once did. She would be in someone else's arms, and I would be at home, dressed as Riley, waiting for her return. The helplessness was total. She was not finished. And on occasion, I may ask you to spend time with other men as well. Now that you have learned to enjoy what we do, now that you prefer our new way of being close, you are ready to take the next step. You can dress as Riley if that makes you more comfortable. But either way, soon you and I will be going on double dates with a pair of gentlemen." "No," I said. The word came out strangled, desperate. Amanda stopped moving. The silence pressed down on me like a physical weight. "No?" she repeated, her voice dangerously soft. "All right then. In that case, we can visit the doctor Nicole has arranged first thing tomorrow morning. She has everything lined up for you to begin your full transition. Hormones, consultations, the complete program. We can have you started by lunchtime. Nicole thinks you should go all the way," Amanda said, echoing her sister's words from earlier that day. "But personally, she would settle for starting with the chest. What would you prefer, Riley? Or maybe something in between? The words hung in the air like a verdict. I lay there, feeling the weight of two futures pressing down on me, each one impossible, each one inescapable. Door number 1. Walk into a clinic tomorrow and begin erasing every physical trace of the man I used to be. Door number 2. Keep what remained of myself, but step into a world where I dated men while Amanda did the same, both of us drifting further from the life we had built together. And there was nothing I could do about any of it. I stayed motionless as Amanda continued behind me, her rhythm steady, unhurried, as though she had all the time in the world. And perhaps she did. She had been planning this for months, maybe longer, laying each piece into place with the patience of someone assembling a mosaic one tile at a time. The vitamins, the devices, the breast forms, the wig, Nicole. Every step had felt like my choice, and every choice had led me deeper into a corridor with no doors. Not once had I suspected it would come to this. That one evening of curiosity would unravel everything I believed about myself and reassemble it into something I could barely recognize. Many things had changed since that first night, when her fingertip had found that unexplored territory, and my body had answered with a force that frightened me. But the thing that had changed the most was me. Here I was, auburn hair spilling across the pillow, pearl necklace cool against my throat, a ruffled skirt bunched around my hips, silk stockings whispering against the sheets, and Amanda behind me, moving with confident authority, as though this was exactly where we had always been headed. "You are not a man anymore, Riley," she said softly, and her voice carried no cruelty, only a calm certainty that was somehow worse. "Give in, darling. Let your feminine side take over completely. It will be so much easier if you just accept it. Double your intake of supplements. See the doctor tomorrow. Let them begin the work. I truly believe you would be happier as a woman." She paused. "Or would you rather start dating men instead?" My mind raced through the wreckage of my options. Every path led somewhere I had never wanted to go. But buried beneath the panic, beneath the shame and the confusion, and the vertigo of a life spinning off its axis, there was one thing I could still see clearly. One thing that still mattered more than pride, more than identity, more than the terrified voice in my head screaming at me to run. Amanda. I could not lose her. Not to another man. Not to a parade of Saturday night dates where she walked out the door in a dress I had watched her buy, smelling of the perfume I had given her last Christmas, heading toward someone else's arms. That image burned brighter and more painfully than anything Nicole had described in the clinic. I could survive becoming Riley. I was not sure I could survive watching Amanda belong to someone else. "If I agree to become a woman," I said, and my voice sounded distant, as though someone else were speaking through my painted lips, "would you agree not to see other men?" The question surprised even me. Some defiant fragment of my old self had surfaced one last time, not to fight the transformation, but to negotiate the only term that still mattered. Amanda stopped moving. The room went silent, except for the faint hum of the devices still vibrating against my chest. I could feel her thinking, feel the calculation behind her stillness. "You want me to become a lesbian?" she said at last. "If you become a woman and I stay with you, that is exactly what I would be." "Yes," I said. "That is what I am asking. Stay with me. Only me. I will take care of you. I will be everything you need. I promise." The silence stretched between us like a held breath. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding beneath the breast forms, quick and desperate and fragile. "All right," she said. She gave one final deep thrust, then withdrew slowly and set the device aside. She lay down beside me, propping herself on one elbow, and looked into my eyes with an expression that blended triumph and tenderness in a way I could not untangle. "You will become a woman," she said, tracing a fingertip along the line of my jaw. "And I will stay with you, and you alone. I will call Nicole tonight and tell her the good news. We will accelerate everything, Tomorrow they can begin the full process. She leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. I am so glad you decided to become a real woman, Riley. I am so glad you are one of us now. I looked at her, and the world sharpened into strange, vivid focus. Amanda seemed luminous, powerful, radiant with the quiet authority of someone who had rewritten the rules of the universe and made it look effortless. And beside her, I felt small. Not diminished, just small. Like a seed that had been cracked open, the old shell falling away, the new shape inside still uncertain of what it was becoming. I love you, I said. And I love you too, Riley, she whispered. You are my girl now. She kissed me, slowly, gently, with the tenderness of someone welcoming a traveler home after a long and disorienting journey. I kissed her back, and I felt a faint, electric flutter deep inside me, a last trembling signal from the body I was about to leave behind, like a lighthouse blinking once more before the dawn made it unnecessary. By this time tomorrow, the first steps would be taken, decisions that could not be reversed, changes that would reshape me from the inside out. The man who had climbed into bed with Amanda all those months ago, confident and unsuspecting, had already vanished. Riley was all that remained, lying in the quiet bedroom with auburn hair fanning across the pillow, one hand resting on the smooth satin of her skirt, the other hand held tightly in Amanda's grip. Outside the window, the last light of Saturday was fading into violet dusk. Somewhere in the city, Nicole was probably already making phone calls, scheduling appointments, setting the machinery of transformation into motion. And here, in the stillness of our bedroom, I lay beside the woman I loved, balanced on the edge of a life I had never imagined and could no longer refuse. I closed my eyes. The vibrating devices had gone silent against my chest, but I could still feel their phantom hum, a ghost rhythm pulsing beneath the surface. Amanda pulled the blanket over both of us and tucked herself against my side, her head resting on my shoulder, her hand still laced through mine. Tomorrow everything changes, she murmured, already half asleep. I stared at the ceiling in the gathering dark, listening to her breathing slow and deepen, and I understood with a clarity that was almost peaceful that she was wrong about one thing. Everything had already changed,